The organization today, known as JW.org, is thought to have over 8 million active members. In most of the world, that JW.org symbol is a visible representation of Jehovah's Witnesses. In years past, Jehovah's Witnesses were recognized by the Watchtower. Watchtower is the name of their flagship publication that for years was distributed as 2 issues each month. Recently, that magazine has experienced a circulation decline to 6 issues annually. A further decline in 2018 will see a circulation of only 3 times each year. Watchtower for many years was also an iconic brand for the organization known as Jehovah's Witnesses. Their former headquarters buildings in Brooklyn Heights in New York City featured a prominent, brightly lit red sign bearing that name, Watchtower. One of the many legal names under which this corporation functions is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. For many Jehovah's Witness members, this entity was simply referred to as the Society, although use of this term has been clearly discouraged. The more favorable phrase among active members today is simply the organization. In the decades since the inception of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, change has been a constant. Although the constant feature has been the Watchtower magazine, its companion journal, for example, has had several names, such as Consolation, The Golden Age, and most recognizable, Awake. The preaching activities of the members have also developed and changed. Whereas witnesses once wore sandwich boards and carried signs that advertised organized religion as being a snare and a racket, they had sound cars and portable phonographs that broadcasted speeches which thundered God's impending judgments upon an otherwise unsuspecting world. Today's witnesses can mostly be observed simply standing alongside a display rack of literature with cover titles that promote human general interest stories, with topics such as cyberbullying and natural disasters. Once that literature is accepted by a member of the public, all of the literature at some location within it will encourage visits to the jw.org website, where the real message begins to be delivered. Even so, the writing style of the website is superficial and generally non-confrontational, which may foster an attitude on the part of the reader that the witness message is reasonable and easy to understand. More importantly, the sprinkling of pleasant and wise Bible passages within the website's articles further reinforces the concept that the message being delivered has no agenda. One could be forgiven for thinking that attending a meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses at a building within their community, known as a Kingdom Hall, would discover a group of very friendly and pleasant fellow neighbors whose only bond is a godly appreciation for discussing upbuilding themes with a perspective from the Bible. But it is at this exact point that the entire relationship that you have with this organization and the members of this organization pivots. The pivot is almost imperceptible in that moment. It's only in hindsight that it can be recognized. And the pivot centers around control. Now that the organization has you in one of their buildings, surrounded only by their members, any voices or thoughts of skepticism or criticism are forever silenced. What you are allowed to see and hear now come under the direct influence of this small group of people. No public questioning is permitted at these meetings, and any personal private doubts that you might have are quickly and decisively discouraged. You will be encouraged to simply keep attending, and in time the message will make sense to you. This level of control was not present when Jehovah's Witnesses were on your doorstep, nor was this level of control in place while you were visiting a literature cart in a public location. In order for the control to be exercised, you need to physically place yourself in a position where the organization controls the information and the format for any discussion and the format for any interaction. It's within the pages of the publications that are considered at these meetings that now the tone of the message changes. No longer are superficial and benign pleasantries exchanged. Now, you begin to hear fearsome sentiments of doom upon a deserving world of wickedness. Now you begin to hear stern cautions towards those whose personal decisions are not aligned with the officially approved norms and mores of your new peer group. Now you begin to feel a burdensome weight of obligation, an obligation to uphold the precious truth that you are now learning. Anything that is presented to you that is beyond the accepted teachings of the organization should be recognized as an attack. Once outside the doors of the meeting place, you are beginning to believe that you are personally being focused on by an unseen, malignant personification of evil, the devil, who is now angry at you and will visit untold harm to you, unless, of course, you remain actively involved as much as possible with your new friends at the Kingdom Hall. You didn't used to feel this way, however. This thought has almost imperceptibly saturated your psyche. And once a thought like that has taken root, logic and reason are now all but useless tools to maintain a healthy defense. Any efforts by well-meaning friends and family to have you at least consider alternate perspectives of life will be perceived by you now as being seductive lies that are authored by the same entity that used a physical serpent in a Garden of Eden ages ago to defile humanity. You will think of these lies and thoughts as coming from Satan. Back at the meetings, assemblies, and conventions with your fellow members, a constant barrage of new teachings and new processes are espoused. In some cases, these teachings will be only slightly revised from what you previously held as being sacred truth. Other times, you will be encouraged to believe the exact opposite from what you formerly held to be the truth. All of this change is by design. Constant change equals stronger control. They are trying to define your reality, even when how they define reality goes against your own perceptions. Since you no longer have any mental resistance, that quickens your acceptance of all this change in teachings and beliefs and messages and processes. Personal beliefs that were once reinforced daily and weekly at the meetings are now totally disregarded. There are many examples of this. One example that some people might readily recognize, if you bring up the year 1975, or for older ones, the year 1925, or the year 1914, the response that you'll get is very telling. A specific date for the end? That's preposterous. That was never said. You are remembering that incorrectly. You are the one that needs to readjust your thinking. You see what they did there? They will never hold themselves accountable, although they will do everything they can to hold you accountable for what you've said, for what you've done, and even what your thinking are. They will take any credit and all credit for good things and claim that it's proof of the blessing of God. But they have never and will never acknowledge anything that they did that ever resulted in harm or bad to their members, to their former members, or to their families. So as time goes on, it is possible that you might find yourself confused and possibly disturbed to think that I'm the one that must be lacking faith. Questions you might be thinking to yourself Is it possible that Satan has successfully planted doubts in my mind? Is my eternal well-being now at stake because I've allowed myself to become misaligned from the truth? You might find yourself in a pretty tumultuous personal conflict because you value your family relationships with those who belong to this organization and the friendships. As a matter of fact, you might even consider those friendships to be more important than relationships you have with your family members that are also members. You may also maintain or try to maintaining a self-image that I am a lover of truth. I have a unique understanding of some deep cosmic issues that most of mankind is blind to. The feelings of confusion that you have, of guilt, of the possible fear and doom that you may be wrestling with, all of those emotions are manifestations of control. So that doesn't sound like a very happy picture right now. There are people that have come before you that have broken free from some of this burdensome emotional baggage, that now have a sense of relief that they're carrying with them now. How have they done it? It may be helpful to consider the tactics that are taken by people that have broken free from damaging and controlling personal circumstances. So let's remove this conversation from one of religion. When you refuse to engage directly with an oppressor in an environment where they're the ones holding the upper hand, or they're the ones controlling the parameters of the discussion, that is a vital and important first step. You've been living up to this point in a false reality, where the organization gets to make up the facts. In their world, in their organization, which is of their design, they do get to make up the facts. Elders, overseers, they like to refer to themselves as shepherds. They will only engage in an environment where they are the ones that have the control. There will be only one of you, and there will be many of them facing you. But when they have no control of the environment, they're not going to engage you there, which is why you will never see them in a public debate of ideas. You will never see them in an interview with a reporter. You will never see them cooperating in a court case, in a court of law. The reason being, if they cannot control the environment and the parameters of discussion, they go to extraordinary lengths to avoid that situation. In the real world, however, they have no power to make up the facts. So engage them in the real world where they have no control. When they cannot control the terms of the conversation, that's when progress can sometimes be made. Become a Jehovah's witness. Talk about your firsthand experience as a Jehovah's Witness. Firstly, witness to yourself. Take an honest look at what your experience has been within the organization. Testify to yourself. What's happened to you? How have you changed? Why do you have these feelings of confusion and guilt now? Look at your own beliefs and ask yourself, what do I truly believe aside from what I'm expected to believe? Think about your experiences. Write them down. Get them out in the open so you can start thinking about them. These thoughts are not objective. They will not be objective. They cannot be objective. What you're going to be doing through this exercise is going to be completely subjective. You are the one that owns your experience, nobody else. Whether your experience is similar to the experience of others or not, no one knows more about you than you. Some have found it helpful to assist them in doing this, in expressing these thoughts, by listening to the thoughts and the experiences of others. Those stories that you hear, those are the things that make up the real world. And one of the things that you might be surprised to find is that you can relate to much of some of these stories. Other tales, you might not have any relation to. Maybe only a small part of what some people say has any bearing on your personal experience. But that's okay. You don't have to take the same course of action as those that came before you. That's the beautiful thing. Once somebody has left the control of the organization, they can go their way, somebody else can go another way, and you can go your way. But please understand, no matter which course you follow, you're going to have company. There are going to be other people who have chosen whatever path that you happen to have chosen. But the difference is, you are now the one who gets to choose the course. When you recognize that others have shared the same experiences that you have, that validates your own reality. Instead of somebody else telling you what you think is reality, you're confused. That never happened. By listening to what other people have said, you're going to realize, I'm not crazy. These things did happen. So once you feel comfortable with the place that you now find yourself in, speak out to those that are just beginning their journey. Don't worry. The organization is not going to engage you here. Why? Because they have no control of the setting. They have no official presence on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Reddit or any of the other many social platforms. Yes, they give lip service to the concept of freedom of speech, and the organization wants to be applauded as being a valiant warrior in support of freeness of speech. Really? Call their bluff. Use their unwillingness to engage in a public forum where they have no control, and use that to your advantage. With every additional voice that lends itself to the Jehovah's witness effort, the less control the organization will have. The less control they have, the less powerful they become. The less powerful they become, the more difficult it will be for them to maintain their tenuous grip on the lives of those that are dear to all of us. Something recently has changed. There's a lot more people lending their voice and witnessing to what it was like to be a Jehovah's Witness. Some are just doing that within conversations with their friends. Others are engaging witnesses at the door when they approach their door in their preaching work. Others are going up to literature carts and engaging witnesses there and recording it and posting those interactions online. Others are going into places of worship and trying to encourage those that are still on the inside. There's things that you need to know. Please at least consider it. Look into it. You've probably watched or listened to some of the people that have been witnessing to what it's been like to be a Jehovah's Witness. There are plenty of publications out there where people have emptied their heart out and tried to explain exactly what their own circumstances were. Take the time to read those things. They are not lies. The world is listening now, more so than they ever have. Now's the time for you to tell your story too. All of us are hearing you. All of us are listening to you. Welcome to the real world. It's not perfect, but it is real. Peace.